We got something for them.
You got something for them too? All right, now Al, bring it on, man. Advocate, speaker on cancer and recovery and all of those kind of things.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just thank you for allowing me to be on the program and the opportunity to be here to share this and some of the information that I'll be sharing with some of the brothers and the sisters. And, you know, you're saying that you had the female interns in the studio, and one of the things that I'm dealing with right now, if you check back through the statistics on prostate cancer, and we'll talk about that too, but I just want to just jump the gun to the statistics show that men who survive prostate cancer are men who have a woman in their life that love them, whether it's a wife or a mother or a girlfriend or whatever. With black men being the highest risk for prostate cancer in the entire world, not just in Chicago or in New York or the United States, but of all the men in the world, black men are the highest risk for prostate cancer.
You know, some brothers at that point would probably say they're going to die because they ain't trying to put up with women that much, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, and you know what I tell those brothers? God bless you. You know? I'm not going like that.
I know that's right, bro. I know that's right.
But it's important to realize that if you have somebody in your life that will tell, I mean, you talk to Charlie Wilson and, you know, like Louis Farrakhan and some of the other brothers who have gone through prostate cancer treatments and survived, then they'll tell you too that the women in their lives are the ones who were prompting them to go to the doctor and get screened. But for the most part, brothers, you know, we have a tendency to deal with having an issue with the digital rectal exam, which is the traditional method for examining the prostate.
And yeah, we talked about it on the show quite a bit, you know.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead.
And you know, and it's like, okay, well, I asked the brothers, there's nothing sexy about the doctor inserting his finger in your rectum. You know,
not at all.
It's about 5 seconds, and if that's all it takes for you to find out if you're healthy, then I suggest you take the doctor's finger and stick it in your own rectum, because it's that important. But it's up to you. You know, my whole theory is if you really truly love yourself like you pretend and like you say, then you'll start treating yourself and stop cheating yourself. But we get caught up in a lot of isms and we use fancy words and we say things that sound good.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you know, when that doctor comes to you and says, Ron Ford, I've got some good news and some bad news.
Okay.
Bad news is that you have prostate cancer.
Okay.
And you better hope that his good news is that it's early stage.
Okay.
You know, I just lost a friend a few weeks ago. I'm sure your listening audience is very familiar with Paul Davis.
Yeah, Paul, yeah.
And Paul was an advocate, similar to myself, and he went through some changes for like a 2-year period, and during that 2-year period, he didn't go and get screened. The conversation we had like, probably a month before he passed away. And within that 2-year period of not being screened, he was cancer-free, and then for 2 years he didn't get screened. When he did go and get screened, he was 4th-stage prostate cancer. And then shortly thereafter, Paul was no longer with us. And you know, there's a lot of controversy about the PSA test, you know, not being helpful and that it does more damage than good. But you got to be careful of the sources that you listen to.
Yeah, that was just something that recently just came out in the last 6 months that they started talking about. That some of the screening tests that they do for cancer are not as effective, is what they were saying. Yeah.
Well, they say that there's too much unnecessary treatment. You know, and part of the reason, it's not the information that's the problem, it's what we do with the information. When you're diagnosed with cancer of any kind, I mean, I lost my father with cancer on the lymph nodes, I lost my mother with cervical cancer, and then I lost my sister from cancer. So when you hear cancer in the black community, normally it's like the big C. You know, the first thing that comes to your mind is death. And so then the panic comes in. I think when Les Brown said, when the doctor told me he had prostate cancer, if he didn't do something about it, it could kill him, he said, do what you gotta do. I had a different approach. It's like, okay, well, this cancer that you say is early stage and you can catch it in me, then if you fix it, how will that affect the rest of my body? And he was telling me that the best thing for me was a radical prostatectomy, just cut the cancer out. And I said, okay, well, that's cool, but how will that affect the rest of my body? And he said, the main thing is to get the cancer. And I said, no, it's not the main thing. You know, life is important to us, but the quality of our life has to be equally as important.
Yes.
So to slow the doctor down, I went home and did my own research. And from that research, I found proton beam radiation therapy, which is the cutting edge prostate cancer treatment in America right now.
What's it called?
It's called proton beam radiation therapy.
Okay.
And it's less than 20 years old, so they say it's not the gold standard. But I didn't need the gold standard. I explained to the doctor that the horse and buggy used to be the gold standard, and the U.S. mill used to be the gold standard. So maybe I'll try this new treatment, and I'll become the poster child for whether or not it works or not. But I was,
Okay.
game for it. It's been 3 years in May, and as you said, I posted my new test because it's kind of like there were people that went along my journey with me, and I felt like I should let them know how I'm progressing. And my test score was 0.5. The average test score for prostate specific antigen, which is the fluid that's generated by the prostate, should be between 0 and 4. So for mine to be 0.5, it's way better than even I expected it to be.
Right. Now, the test you're talking about was the one that's still in question, the PSA.
The PSA, the very
Yeah.
same test that they're saying you shouldn't take. But my question is, if you don't know you have cancer until it's 4th stage, then why shouldn't you take this test? And again, I don't think it's the test itself that does the damage. It's what you do with the information once you have it.
Because a PSA test, for those that don't know, is just simply a blood draw.
Yeah, it didn't replace fully the DRE, but it's the latest test that's used to determine, and it doesn't determine the cancer. The PSA, the prostate-specific antigen, is the fluid that's generated through the prostate that helps to create the semen. So when you take the blood test and your PSA is high, my PSA was 13.9 when I had it taken. And it's so funny because when the doctor told me, he said, well, you need to have a biopsy because your PSA was high, and that could be an indicator that there's something wrong.
Right, and that was the next level of diagnosis. Well,
Next
once
level.
the PSA determined that you have certain enzymes in your blood, then you need to go to the next level, which would be a biopsy.
The only way to determine would be a
Right.
biopsy because benign prostatic hyperplasia, which is commonly referred to as enlarged prostate, that carries the same, some of the same symptoms as prostate cancer. It can give you a high reading.
Okay.
So, and even, a lot of men need to know before you go get the PSA test, don't have sex for 2 days before you get your test. Don't ride bikes. Don't do anything that can irritate the prostate.
Can't have no sex, man?
Well, I'm saying if you do, when you go get your
Just
PSA,
don't throw your PSA
don't
on?
throw it off because it's irritating.
I ain't never had
the
accurate PSA.
prostate. Well, let's hope you don't have prostate cancer either. On a serious note,
Yeah.
there's so many things that you don't know about. And so, you
Right.
have to.
I didn't know that. That's good information.
There's been not one brother, I've been all over the country speaking and on the phone, and brothers from, got brothers from Facebook, friends have referred friends, and I guarantee you, there's been not one person I've spoken to, those who've had the test, that had the cancer, had treatment, that I didn't give them some information that they didn't have.
Wow,
that
that's great.
they didn't have already, because it's like, okay, well, they didn't know that.
Right.
And it's because information is constantly changing. Technology and all these treatment options are constantly changing. A lot of brothers think that the only way to get the test is to go and bend over and let the doctor do the fingers.
Yeah. Now, when you get in an older age bracket, you also have recommendations that you're supposed to do colonoscopies and things like that, where they do exams with the scopes and all those kind of things. And they generally, when they're doing those exams, once you reach certain 50s or whatever older, they can determine whether you have polyps in your colon. Now, those are still more accurate than the PSA and then the digital exam.
Well, again, I always have to make it clear that I'm not a doctor.
You don't know, I understand, no, but but you've been through the process.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm saying sometimes people say, well, you shouldn't talk about that because you're not a doctor. But I know, and the one thing I want to say is, prostate cancer used to be an old man's disease. You didn't have to worry about prostate cancer till you were well into your 60s, maybe 70. But then, during the time that I was going through my treatment, there was a brother 29 years old with prostate cancer. There's another guy on Facebook with the Blue Cure. He's 35. He's got a whole campaign. He's doing a lot of great things with educating the younger brothers about prostate cancer. So it's like what used to be doesn't normally necessarily apply to us anymore. We've changed our habits drastically in this country. There was one of the studies that showed that over 90% of the prostate cancer has been directly linked to our diet. But that shouldn't be a surprise because so has heart problems and hypertension and high blood pressure. So we're eating to live. I mean, some people eat to live and some people live to eat. And as a result, we're eating things that are destroying our bodies. If you go back 50 years ago, we used to spend like 5% of our income on healthcare and somewhere around 17% on food. Now we're spending 17% of our income on healthcare, 5% on food. 99 cent 2 liters and you know, like
Right.
chicken nuggets and grease and fries and all that other stuff. So now we've got the largest obesity problem in the world. And they're talking about cancer doubling by, you know, within the next 30 years. The cancer rate is going to double. The obesity rate is going to double. But we, you know, we're content. We're so-called, we're successful now. But we have to pay attention to what we're putting in our bodies. So
Right.
it's no longer an old man's disease. I'm not sure about the colonoscopy being, and, you know, waiting until a certain age. They say, I think at 40 or 50.
Well, yeah, I think
Every 5
they
years?
they recommend every 2 to 3 years after you reach 50. If you have any signs or
Right now,
symptoms, it might be once
it's been
a
like
year.
for 5 or 6 years, is according to the doctors for me.
Yeah.
I had to have a colonoscopy before I had the treatment.
Right.
And they do go into the colon. And once again, they're going back to the rectum again. It's
Right.
like, brothers, you know, get over it.
But they put you to sleep for that one, so I ain't got no problem.
No.
They put me to sleep.
Okay. You're just a big baby, man. 'Cause you know, I'm lying there looking at, looking at the screen. They give you something to doze you off. I wasn't asleep. Maybe
Man, they
mine.
knocked me out. Okay, I had better insurance than you.
I don't know.
Well, you know, it was amazing when I went for the test. You know, it was in a gastrologist's office, and the technician that knocked me out. You know, he was like, "Man, you strong." You know, I'm like, "What do you mean I'm strong?" You know, he said when the doctor inserted the probe, you know, all the way, he said my arm went up, and they couldn't get it down. Now I'm asleep. I didn't know, and I had to ask, "What y'all do to me in there?" You know, then my arm went up. You know, and couldn't get it down. You know, so but they were able to, you know, do the exam. You know, and once they did the exam, they did find a couple of polyps in there that they removed. You know, so that was, you know, a preventive procedure to stop things from getting any worse. So I guess, you know, and I'm saying along with those other things that you're talking about, you know, the PSA, and I get those done twice a year.
For once.
Well, I get mine done twice a year when I do blood work. 'Cause I got 2 different doctors and they don't know each other. You know,
Backup plan.
Right. I don't want no mistakes. I want them to go, oops. You know, oh, we didn't see this the first time. You know, so I get it done twice a year because it's a blood test. You know, when they do the blood test, you know, then I get the results and they say my numbers are good. You know, and as long as the numbers are good on that, then I can avoid the Vaseline up the behind thing. You know, because I ain't, you know, they say. You know,
like I said, there's nothing sexy about it.
No.
And it's only like a 5-second exam. All they're doing is checking
I
around.
don't know, my mind must not be doing it because he be looking like he lost his car keys or something up there. I don't know what his problem is.
As long as he doesn't have both his hands on your shoulders while he's doing the exam.
No, I ain't got that kind of doctor.
I'm just saying.
You know, but and I remember, you know, you and I was talking, and I don't know if you want me to say this in the public or not,
You
but
got a 5-second delay on this thing.
no, we got to, you know. But you was talking about how instrumental that it is to have the females a part of this process.
Oh yeah.
You know, to encourage men to go in there and have some man stick his hand up your. You know, so if she's standing there holding your hand while this is going on, you know, it might soothe the transaction. We got to go to break. I'm getting the high sign from the CSO. So we are talking cancer and getting tested, you know, prevention, knowing what your status is. We're going to take a pause for the calls. You're listening to the Ask Dr. Ron Show. I am your host, Ron Ford. We're here on the globalnewsforum.com. We got the legendary Al Brown in the studio. Y'all going to find out why he's legendary in the next segment. You know, so y'all stick around, don't go nowhere. See you on the other side of the break.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of an anticlimax going last. I mean, we've had so many talented people here. We've had so many people do some amazing things. I don't have that many skills. I can't create different sounds with my voice by pressing different buttons. But what I can do is poetry. I'm a spoken word artist. Last year was a bit difficult for me, if I'm honest, because I was told to talk about democracy. I'm not too engaged when it comes to political terms like that. And it's difficult to find words that rhyme with democracy, actually. Like, it's very difficult. Democracy, biography, a couple other ographies which they wouldn't approve of in Parliament. You guys got, I hope I don't get in trouble for that. So this year they said I could discuss and talk about leadership. And I realized that I actually don't know that much about leadership as a whole. So everything I'm gonna say is my opinion on what I think leadership should be. It will be relevant to some of you, may not be relevant to some of you, but please don't come up to me afterwards and give me political statements and manifestos and tell me what's right and what's wrong. I'm just stating my opinion. That's what I do as an artist. It's called Follow the Leader. Oh, and I have to explain, spoken word is basically like poetry, yeah. Or if you want to sound more cool, it's more like rap. But, now, I don't know that much about leadership. All I know is that as kids, we all wanted to be the Red Ranger. Now, if you don't understand the significance of being the Red Ranger, I feel very sorry for you. Because it means you were either born way too late to appreciate the birth of one of the world's greatest legacies, or you were born way too early to be born in one of the world's greatest centuries. But for those of you who don't know, being the Red Ranger meant that you were part of an esteemed group of individuals known as the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, as kids, we wanted to be the Red Ranger, because not being the Red Ranger not only meant that you got the biggest sword, the biggest Zord, and got to scream, "It's morphin' time," before every fight, but it also meant that you were the leader of the group. Now, as kids, we all wanted to be the Red Ranger. Well, actually, I wanted to be the Black Ranger for obvious reasons, but can we agree that as kids, we were unafraid to be Power Rangers, heroes, leaders? As a matter of fact, we were eager to be anything more than meager. So can we then agree that mediocrity, being average, is something that we learn? Not learn, but are taught. Maybe Socrates can expand more on this thought. What is leadership? He defined it as the challenge to be something more than average. Something we were willing to accept before life put us in the deep end. Because as we get older, it then starts to deepen. Most of us only want to be front in line to the pub or the club on the weekend. But is that our fault? Because from when I was young, I was told, "Suli, one day you're going to have to lead your own life." But this was then preceded by me being taught how to follow. In school, I learned to follow the rules. The first game we ever learned to play was follow the leader. I always had to make sure I understood the following. My boss always made sure I followed up on everything. My parents taught me how to follow the system, follow religion, follow tradition. And then they said they'll kill me if I ever followed in their footsteps. But the severity of this never really hit home, because even in my favorite TV show, Dorothy told me to follow the yellow brick road. Ironically, one thing I was never taught to follow was my heart. It was like follow fashion before you follow passion. So you can understand why my mum seemed bitter when I told her I wanted to be in a band, especially as I explained that I wanted to be the lead singer. Also, I couldn't sing. But the world doesn't need new leaders, because leaders come and go like common codes. If you ask me, the next leader should be a community guided by a common goal, one which everyone can contribute, young and old. I never understood why you had to be 18 to vote, because that's way too late to clean up the mess made by the previous generation. The world doesn't need new leaders. The world needs new ideas. Ideas that tell me I don't have to walk like that or talk like this, that me and you can be different. Because listen to this, and this is wisdom. People die, but ideas live forever. Because great ideas are all the greatest leaders ever were. If you look at it, Abraham Lincoln, equality. Julius Caesar, strength. Mahatma Gandhi, peace. Nelson Mandela, unity. Princess Diana, empathy. Mother Teresa, compassion. And I'm not saying I agree with all their actions, but I agree with their ideas. Maybe the scariest reality is that we are all leaders, because we all have ideas, but somewhere in between our adult lives and 9 to 5s, we're pacified to believe that we're satisfied. When deep down inside you, there's a Red Ranger, fully suited up, ready to swing at whatever life throws up. Don't get distracted by the noise the world throws to blind you, because deep down, there is a voice inside you, wondering why you haven't spoken to it in years. Because you know what I realize? We don't always get wiser with age. Society just breeds us to forget or remember things that we already knew were true in the first place. There's not that much more I need to say. Just that you be red tomorrow and let me be green today. And we can change the world either way, as long as we're unafraid to make mistakes and keen to play. And then you can see, as long as we stop looking for others to lead the way, that creating a better world is a piece of cake. We don't need leaders, we need ideas. Thank you very much.
Johnny Trotter and them playing games. And
they didn't vote for him.
Didn't vote for him.
Neither did Kimberly Lightfoot. And so, and let me just say this, with all due respect to Leader Lightfoot, who I know, who I don't think we could find a bigger champion for education, and even when it came down to healthcare issues in the state facing African American women than Leader Lightfoot. But with all deference and due respect to her, and this goes back again, and I hate to bring the guy's name up again on your show. You know, Mays again with this conversation around when do we forgive each other. Great, we can forgive each other. All you got to do is tell the truth. See, I think there's some steps, and Brother Muhammad, you can go take us through that, because I'm sure you was there. You know firsthand the process of atonement. That was what the Million Man March was all about. And one of them, the process of reconciling, is you got to be honest. We got to come to the table with the truth and stand on it, and everybody put their hand on the table. You know, if in your heart, man, be honest. That's all I'm saying. So we can have unity if you be honest. But you say, okay, Kim, you made a mistake 10 years ago when you went against Jim Claiborne. Ricky Hennon, it was hypocritical for you to go up in the article with political when you led the charge. You even got Father Flagger to flip Jackie Collins.
Okay, so
you went to Flagger and said, what, this guy believes in guns, when you know that Jim Claiborne, who wrote most of the progressive minority, tried to put the word black in as an attorney, and they struck it out as it relates to contracting. But he's from downstate, and black and white folks downstate, East St. Louis, believe in having their guns.
Right.
So he was pro-gun.
So the very people now, Ricky Henderson,
that are attacking him,
is attacking the process. They're saying that black people are not lining up with Kimberly.
Actually, they're trying to make a divide. That is the South Side versus the West Side. Okay. Because LG Sims is running. Okay. Who, by the way, and let me just say this about LG Sims. Many people don't know this. When Emil was the majority leader before he became Senate president. So even in the majority leader's office, LG was on Emil Jones' staff then as a point man on the budget. You won't find another person. I ain't gonna talk about black or white. You ain't gonna find another person in that Senate right now that know the state budget like LG Sims. Know where every dollar is, know how to find it and know how to push it out.
Wow.
If given that opportunity, then LG Sims. I will say that. So, and I'm not necessarily criticizing Leader Lightfoot. What I'm saying is that there are systems and there's process. There are 40 senators down there in Springfield. Yes, John Cullerton, the retiring president, has made Leader Lightfoot majority leader. So in that instance, many people feel, and as Leader Lightfoot, that she should ascend to the presidency. Well, she's got to get 40 of her colleagues to go along with that. And I'm sure in engaging that from a political operative and a political consultant perspective, they're looking at a lot of things. How many of your colleagues have you helped when they've been in an election cycle? Meaning, how many people did you put on the street to go get their signatures, to knock on their doors? How much money did you help raise for your colleagues when they were running? All that is the making of a leader. A leader has to take care of the body. Right. And so those are things that people are going to look at. How are you, when it came down to negotiations on the budget, to help them bring resources back to their district? How much of that did you fight for them? So a lot of those things. So in this race, you have LG, you have Napoleon Harris, LG Sims, Senator LG Sims, you have Napoleon Harris, you have Leader Lightfoot, and you have Don Harmon. Now, for full disclosure, I have worked with Don Harmon. Okay. I'm going to be very transparent, so this ain't no I got you moment. I'm going to be very clear. I've worked with Don Harmon doing some of the same stuff I just talked about. He's hired me and my company to go out and help get signatures for several of the African American senators that are running when they were running in their districts. As then assistant majority leader, he's done that. So from that standpoint, I think that's why some folks are leaning towards his way. I think it's going to be a very close election. What I take issue with is Ricky Hendon criticizing black folks for not supporting Leader Lightfoot when he had the opportunity to make sure that seat stayed black. Ricky Hendon, single-handedly, really, because Ricky is sometimes the loudest voice in the room, with his tactics, was able to go out and talk to community leaders to put pressure on their senators to vote a different way.
And that's how Cullerton.
And that's how Cullerton and Kim Lightfoot. I'm saying this. She became assistant majority leader after she voted for Cullerton.
From that same effort.
From that same effort. So it's a little bit disingenuous for you now to go talk about, well, these black folks are sell out and they doing this. I mean, listen, I'm gonna let the Senate handle this however they handle it. My allegiance is to LG Sims because I've worked with LG Sims. You know, I would like to see him as the president, but if he doesn't get it, my second choice is Harmon. Now, if Kim Lightfoot comes up with the other votes, she come up with them.
So let me.
And I'm fine with it.
The football player, what's his name?
Napoleon.
So you got Napoleon, who probably got that brain disease. I mean, I think something.
Brain disease.
That, football. CTE.
I'm not certain if he had that, but he certainly has some when it comes down to paying. But that's another story.
And so so is this a prime example of 3 black people and a white person, and the white guy slides in?
Well, here's the deal, Carol. As you know, with all these investigations and all these things going on in Springfield, you'd have probably hit a Latino in the race. Antonio Munoz was probably going to run. So you have you have 10 blacks down in the Senate, and I believe that there are 4 or 5 Latinos, give or take, right? So I know that Leader Lightfoot has mustered up votes from one of the most progressive whites down there, a couple of them, in Andy Menard, and she's got Heather Steens on her side, right? Which is very important because Steins is very respected, and they will also work together on the marijuana bill, which can be discussed at another time about that process. But so at this point, Leader Lightfoot is gathering votes. I do believe that she has the majority of her caucus, not all of them.
They need 30 votes, right?
You really need like something around 22 votes. It's 40 people. So if you get the majority, of the votes, so 22 votes. She's saying she's got 14 solidly. I don't know whether that's true or not, but again, that's going to be determined by the body. Right? The body is going to ultimately, but I will say community weighs in when community leaders start calling their representatives, putting pressure on them to take a vote. Here we go again.